Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to another session of RBI 247 where we discuss finance current affairs. Please let me know if I'm audible to all of you and also if the board is visible. Today we are just going to discuss two very important topics. The first one is about China and the fact that China's economy is in deflation. We have already understood that deflation chal rahi hai, but growth is also going down. This does not mean that growth ho nahi rahi hai. Growth ho rahi hai, but not what was expected. Now, what is going to be the impact of this on other economies? This is what we are going to understand in this topic today. Okay, great. The second one is about IBBI, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. इसके अंदर IBBI में कुछ amendments आए हैं. That is what we are going to understand. Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code के बारे में समझेंगे and we will also understand what are these amendments because these can be asked in your exam. Okay, let's start with the first topic, which is China's economy is slowing down and what will be the impact on the world. Now, generally, China की economy double digit में grow होती है. It grows at more than around 8 to 9%. However, this year the growth has been subpar and the growth has been only around 5.5%, which is low when you look at China, जो एक ऐसी economy है that is always growing, that has a lot of factors, a lot of positive factors which are working towards its benefits and इसको growth दिलाने में. They are working to bring growth, further growth in this economy. हमने हमेशा देखा है China, all the entire countries working together, they want to counter China. They want to counter China. China के imports जो exports, China से exports बहुत ज़्यादा जाते हैं to various countries, which is increasing. These countries CAD, the deficit is increasing for various countries, including India, including USA. Therefore, they want कि हम या तो anti-China policies adopt करें, or they also want something like Make in India or something like Atmanirbhar, so that we are dependent on ourselves, and thus we should not be dependent on others economies like China, क्योंकि वो बहुत ज़्यादा grow कर रही है. And when they're growing, they're also following certain policies which are not in favor of other countries, but only pro-China policies, right? So अब इसकी जो growth है, जो कम हो रही है, the growth is decreasing. What is going to be the impact? That's what we are going to study. Now, this I've already explained कि around 5.5% है, which is not what was expected. Generally, double-digit growth होती है. At the same time, deflation भी हो रहा है in that economy. This we have already discussed. इसके दो reasons हैं. The two major reasons for deflation in China is number one, the COVID. Now, if you're thinking कि COVID तो already खत्म हो चुका है, the impact is already finished, or the impact is still not continuing in various other economies. That is right. However, in China, the COVID had various COVID के बहुत सारे elements आए हैं, and for that reason they have been impacted the most by the COVID pandemic. बहुत सारे variations आए थे in this COVID pandemic. The second is its own policies. Its own policies, the monetary policy that it followed, the interest rate that they did not decrease when they should have decreased. So these are the major two factors for deflation. Another factor is demand. जब COVID चल रहा था, when there was COVID, even after the COVID was receding or the impacts of COVID were reducing, the demand could not be increased. Because अब देखिए, during COVID, everybody was at home. They could not demand more. बाहर जाके आप shopping नहीं कर सकते. Tourism नहीं हो रहा है because there is COVID. Tourism is also one of the factors for demand, right? When you are going to other economies, when you are even visiting in your own country, you are going to demand more. अगर आप कहीं पे as a tourist जाते हैं, you're going to increase the demand. But because of COVID, tourism was impacted. Since tourism was impacted, the demand was also impacted. Otherwise also demand में बहुत ज़्यादा impact आया है, जो कि बाकी economies में, economies like India, economies like US, अगर आप देखेंगे, there is high inflation. India में the inflation is somewhere around 7%, which is more than 6%. Can anyone tell me the reason? One of the main reason why India is at such a high inflation, 6% से भी ज़्यादा की inflation India में क्यों है? Is there anyone who can tell me that? ओके, एंड एट द सेम टाइम वी आर सीइंग कि चाइना में बहुत ज्यादा डिफ्लेशन है. द रीजन आई एम लुकिंग फॉर, द आंसर इज आई एम लुकिंग फॉर इज पेंट अप डिमांड. जो कोविड में डिमांड नहीं कर पाए थे, there is an increase in the pent up demand. अब लोग ज्यादा डिमांड कर रहे हैं. When they are going to demand more, the inflation is going to increase. This is something that is not happening in China. Now let us look at the impact and why is it a matter of concern? Why do we care or why do other economies care कि चाइना की इकोनॉमी ग्रो नहीं कर रही है अच्छे से? Why is it petrol price, food price? Yes, but the answer is pent up demand, which I was looking for, which I could connect with this example. Now, this is a concern because China is the second largest importing economy. When you are an importing economy, that means कि कहीं ना not कहीं ना कहीं but directly you are impacting and you are impacted by other economies. When you are importing a lot, आप second largest importer हैं, so you are also going to get affected by various other economies and other economies are also going to be affected. How? When demand is not there, these economies which are exporting to China, they are going to get affected. So these economies who are exporting to China, China is the second largest importing nation, they are going to get impacted. Then the GDP of the countries who are exporting, जो countries export कर रही हैं China को, let's suppose US या ऐसी बहुत, South Korea, one of these countries, South Korea and US, they are impacted because वो अब export नहीं कर रहे हैं China को, or they cannot export it to China because of the demand which is not increasing in China. Now, when did it all start? Problem कहाँ से आई? Let us look at that. Okay, somebody is saying, ma'am, we should be celebrating. Jay Prakash has said we should be celebrating. We are going to, read about all that in just a minute. Okay, बाकी slides में इसके बारे में भी discussion है. When did it all start? Due to the COVID, there is low production. This I've already explained. Demand कम हो गई. जब COVID में everybody is sitting at home, there is no production. जब production कम होगी, employment कम होगी, employment कम होगी, तो demand भी कम होगी. There is less liquidity in the hands of people. There is less liquidity in the hands of people. When there is less liquidity, there is less demand. And क्या reason है इन सबका? The pandemic. The pandemic which had major impact on China. बाकी countries में भी था, but China में we have all seen बहुत सारे variants आए थे COVID के. That is why this economy is impacted more by COVID. Then China also did not decrease in its interest rate. जब inflation बढ़ रही होती है, then interest rate में भी change आता है. We tend to increase its interest rate. However, when inflation was very low after COVID, demand बढ़ानी थी. Major economies they wanted कि अब demand बढ़े. Economies like USA, economies like India, what they did after COVID-19 pandemic, what they did was they started reducing the demand. They started reducing the interest rate. So they reduced the interest rate because of which demand, so that the demand could increase. तो जब आप interest rate reduce करेंगे तो आपकी demand increase होगी. Now demand में already problem है China में, but they did not decrease their interest rate, something that other economies did. सही टाइम पे उन्होंने इंटरेस्ट रेट रिड्यूस करे, फिर जब धीरे धीरे इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल में आने लगी, लाइक राइट नाउ इन इंडिया और इवन इन द लास्ट 1 year आल्सो इन इंडिया, इन्फ्लेशन हैज बीन अबव द मार्क. सो व्हाट दे स्टार्टेड डूइंग, बाय दे आई मीन द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, द सेंट्रल बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, द RBI, व्हाट डिड द RBI स्टार्टेड डूइंग? RBI started increasing the interest rate because अब इन्फ्लेशन आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल जा रहा था, राइट? सो दीज सच मॉनेटरी पॉलिसीज ऑफ द चाइना वर नॉट गोइंग इन देयर फेवर. Then instead extended COVID restriction as cases arose during 2021. This also COVID because of new variants of COVID, the restrictions were also increased or enhanced. The restrictions extend भी हो गए थे in China. Then the demand and liquidity fell drastically. This is also because अब restrictions increase हो गए हैं. Again, demand जो increase होनी चाहिए थी, that also did not increase any further because now there are new restrictions because of new variants. वो 2021 में भी यही चला, 2022 में भी यही चला, right? Then China struggles to increase demand and liquidity despite record low interest rate. अब interest rate इतना कम है चाइना में, finally जब interest rate कम होने लगे चाइना में, even then the demand could not increase. Even then the demand could not increase. अब demand increase ही नहीं होगी तो deflation होगी ही होगी because people are not demanding. That is why deflation हो रही है. Unemployment is also there in the economy. Growth rate is also low. other economies are also getting affected. उनके एक imports and exports भी कम हो रहे हैं. When your exports are falling, export क्यों fall हो रहे हैं? Because other economies में भी demand कम थी after COVID, right? And also supply chain bottlenecks की वजह से भी demand कम थी. So export में भी impact हो रहा है. When exports are decreasing, you are unable to earn more. When you are unable to earn more, your growth is going to decrease, right? And similarly, इनके import भी कम हो रहे हैं because of again demand. I have not written it, but demand जब decrease होगी तो आपके imports भी already कम हो जाएंगे. Now, another impact is tourism पे बहुत, tourism is one such sector. China से बहुत सारे tourists various other countries में जाते हैं. Countries like South Korea, okay, it is not written I guess here, but countries like South Korea, they attract a lot of tourists from China, which is not happening now. After the pandemic, even now, China से लोग tourists जा ही नहीं रहे हैं, because again, liquidity पे impact है, restrictions impose हुए हैं, and demand भी कम है वहाँ पे. Then, global luxury market. Chinese tourists used to travel abroad and buy luxury goods to avoid taxes. Now, however, they are not choosing domestic luxury brands. As a result, China's share of the global luxury goods market fell from 33% to 19%. चाइना में जो लग्जरी गुड्स की मार्केट थी, it was 33%, but because of travel bans, because of COVID restriction, because of liquidity, reduced liquidity in the economy, because of demand that was less, 33% से 19% market share हो गया है. किसका market share? The luxury goods market. Then FDI भी decrease हुए हैं. The FDI into China dropped significantly in 2022. Again, when your FDIs, अगर किसी country के FDI decrease होंगे, their reserves will decrease, their import cover further will decrease. Now, and it reached an all-time low of 4.9 billion in June quarter of 2023. Now, इसका एक reason ये भी है that many countries want to shift out of China. They do not want to depend only on China. Then another impact on Indian exports में भी इसका impact है. क्या impact है? Indian exports iron ore and steel to China. Now, what is going to happen जब demand कम है? When there is reduction in demand for natural resources of India, तो India के exports पे भी बहुत ज़्यादा impact पड़ेगा, because they export iron ore and steel to China. यहाँ तक किसी को कोई problem है? Is there any problem? Now, why? Again, now why? Let's just understand quickly, why is FDI falling in China? The government banned the use of US-based memory chips. खुद की government जब ऐसे restrictions लेके आएंगी कि when they're going to ban such items of US, which has direct impact on the FDI. अगर आप खुद से ही ऐसे ban करोगे या ऐसी policies लेके आओगे, it is going to impact the FDI in your own country. Now, companies also are uneasy about the Beijing's promotion of national self-reliance, something that India is also doing, something that is not wrong. However, when a lot of countries are exporting to you, when you are an import-dependent country, and when you impose such restrictions, India में हम क्या follow करते हैं? Ease of doing business, ताकि restrictions ना हो. When we follow ease of doing business, we are promoting FDIs and FPIs in India. However, such restrictive policies, they are not just going to, outflow तो होगा ही FPI का, but at the same time, any new FPI, one cannot expect that there will be inflow of foreign investment. Companies are on edge after the police raided the offices of 2 consultancies. ये कुछ detail and technical है, that there was some issue with a few companies there, and because of that also, FDI is falling in China. Now, what is the impact on India? One, we have already discussed that India के exports पे impact होगा. The second is, there can be positive impact of India as well. Let's see that. India will benefit from a sharp fall in China's manufacturing profits and investment, especially in sector where China is losing its competitiveness. Now, this word, somebody was saying, I think Jay Prakash was saying that we should celebrate because China's economy is slowing down. See, we are dependent on China for our exports. China हमसे बहुत कुछ import करता है. We are exporting. From that angle, we are getting affected. However, when it comes to competitiveness, अगर China में demand नहीं है, and we can provide that demand, or China is not an attractive market also, then India can provide a counter market. India as a country can provide a counter market to counter to China, right? So competitiveness is one factor where we can have an edge with this news. Okay, now what is the future for China? China ka kya future hai? We have understood the impact on India, but what is the future for China? Then the future can be healthy. How can it be healthy? Because we have just discussed that there is slowdown in China. The future can be healthy because there are certain sectors that are still being promoted by the government, that are still performing well. One such sector is renewable sector. The world is already promoting or moving towards sustainable development. Each and every country is working towards sustainable development, and for that we need to depend on the renewable sources of energy. And this is one such sector जो कि future oriented sector है, and this can give an edge to China. Now China is the second largest also auto exporter after beating Germany. So this is again renewable sector में बहुत ज़्यादा promotion है in China. That is how this can be healthy. Similarly, the second is the strong crude imports. Now, strong crude imports in China imply that future might be healthy because अभी भी वो crude import कर रहे हैं. Now, the future is bleak and unhealthy. How is that possible? Because we just studied the future is healthy. Because जो भी हमने अभी सब reasons समझे हैं, वही reasons है इसका answer. Why is the future unhealthy? Because there is unemployment, because demand slow है, because deflation है, and बाकी economies are also getting affected. And one more thing, other economies are getting affected, and other economies are not just coming to you, but also there is outflow of investments, जिसकी वजह से आपके reserves भी कम हो जाएंगे and import cover कम हो जाएगा. You further, this country China will not be able to import more because आपके reserves ही इतने नहीं हैं. So that is because of all these reasons, the future is unhealthy. The weak manufacturing sector, जो purchasing manager index होता है, it is an index जो बताता है कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में व्हाट इज द सिचुएशन इन द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर. सो जो परचेजिंग मैनेजर होता है किसी भी कंपनीज का, ऑल ऑफ दीज इनके जो डेटा होता है, ऑल द डेटा दैट इज देयर विद परचेजिंग मैनेजर्स, आई एम राइटिंग पीएम ऑफ वेरियस कंपनीज टुगेदर, इन सब से डेटा लिया जाता है एंड यूजिंग दैट डेटा एन इंडेक्स इज मैप्ड और द सिचुएशन इज गेज्ड थ्रू दिस इंडेक्स व्हिच इज द परचेजिंग मैनेजर्स इंडेक्स फॉर द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड द सर्विस सेक्टर व्हिच इज वीक. सेकेंडली, इंपोर्ट्स एंड एक्सपोर्ट्स पे बहुत ज्यादा इंपैक्ट हो रहा है. एंड देन इंपैक्ट ऑफ एक्सचेंज रेट ऑफ चाइना, दिस आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड कि आपका रिजर्व विल फॉल बिकॉज आपके इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट दोनों कम हो रहे हैं. एंड सेकेंडली, एफडीआई एंड एफपीआई, there is outflow instead of inflow of this investment. There is outflow. People are taking back their money and leaving. So जिसकी वजह से आपके रिजर्व्स कम होंगे. That is how the exchange rate of China is going to be impacted. इसलिए हमें लग रहा है the future is going to be unhealthy. Now this is about IBBI. I apologize, I have not written the heading here. This is about IBBI. IBC code में कुछ amendments आई हैं. Amendments. Let us look at these amendments. However, before that, let me quickly tell you what is IBC, because अमेंडमेंट्स तो हम पढ़ लेंगे बट हमें यही नहीं पता व्हाट इज आईबीसी, इंसॉल्वेंसी बैंक्रप्सी कोड ऑफ इंडिया और आईबीबीआई. हाउ विल वी मूव फॉरवर्ड? यहां तक किसी को कोई प्रॉब्लम है, यू कैन आस्क मी एंड देन आई विल एक्सप्लेन व्हाट इज आईबीबीआई. somebody is asking what is deflation. Can anyone write down what is deflation? What is the actual definition of deflation? Who is going to tell me? Okay, Rohan is asking purchasing managers index. See, all the purchasing managers of companies, उन सबका data लिया जाता है that what are you expecting कि future में is there going to be a rise in the prices or the economic situation. Based on that, are you going to purchase more or are you going to reduce your production as well as purchase? Because purchasing manager है तो आपकी जब आप purchase कम करोगे, when you're purchasing raw materials, your the purchase is reducing, तो मतलब आप produce भी कम करोगे. So that is how we gauge the situation of the manufacturing sector and somewhere also of the service sector. Okay, this index is known as purchasing managers index. Okay, I hope Rohan, I'm clear with the definition. Okay, decrease in general price level of goods and services. Can anyone give me the actual definition of deflation? Okay, Moving forward, let us now start with the second topic, which is IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which came in 2016. So 2016 में Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code was introduced. इससे पहले बहुत सारे Insolvency and Bankruptcy codes थे, laws थे. Now this was introduced to replace the existing laws, which धीरे धीरे either they were becoming similar, overlapping उन पे rules थे, and also some points were becoming redundant. Some of the features of these various laws, जो preceding laws थे. So a unified code was launched. एक code आया, a unified code, which was IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. अगर कोई company insolvent होती है या bankrupt होती है, the creditors of that company, कौन से creditors? The financial creditors and the operational creditors. Both the financial creditors and the operational creditors of the company can complain to somebody कि ये हमारा पैसा नहीं दे रहे हैं, which means they are becoming insolvent. They are becoming insolvent. Let's suppose there is a company XYZ Limited. Now XYZ Limited is not paying money of a lot of financial creditors. Let's suppose SBI से पैसा लिया है, PNB से पैसा लिया है, and a lot of operational creditors as well. Now they are not returning the money. So these creditors, they can go and start a proceeding. What is this proceeding? Insolvency and bankruptcy proceeding or process. Now they are going to complain to the AA, adjudicating authority. When I write AA, I mean adjudicating authority, which is the National Company Law Tribunal, the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. So these financial creditors, these operational creditors can start the insolvency proceeding. They can file a complaint with this XYZ against this XYZ company to the NCLT, which is the adjudicating authority. Now there is one more DRT, Debt Recovery Tribunal, but right now we are talking about companies, therefore there is NCLT. Now, can only these two and nobody else can complain? There is one more person which can complain. It is the company themselves, the debtor. So XYZ Limited खुद ही जाके बोल सकती है that I am insolvent. Now, the function of the IBC is not to declare a company insolvent, it is to resolve the company. आप अगर देखेंगे, it is resolution, insolvency resolution. There is a concept of SERP. There is a concept of SERP, corporate insolvency resolution process or plan. Corporate insolvency resolution, which means corporate is the company. वो कंपनी इंसॉल्वेंट हो गई, बट वी आर गोइंग टू रिजॉल्व इट एंड इट इज अ प्रोसेस. सो दिस फंक्शन और दिस एंटायर प्रोसेस इज अंडर द आईबीसी, इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड. नाउ दिस डज नॉट मीन कि कंपनी को सिर्फ इंसॉल्वेंट डिक्लेयर करना है, बट दे आर गोइंग टू रिजॉल्व एंड दे आर गोइंग what they're going to do is कि किसी तरीके से FC, which is the financial creditor or the operational creditor, they can get back their money. Okay, Divya has given an answer. Deflation is general decline in prices of goods and services, typically associated with contraction in the supply of money and credit in the economy. So I hope जिसको भी ये doubt था, it is clear. A lot of you have given right answers, which is great. But I think deflation is a very very easy concept, and you should be able to know what is the meaning of deflation, inflation, disinflation also. Okay, now let us talk about the insolvency bankruptcy code. Now इसमें कुछ आप terms पढ़ेंगे, उसके लिए let us have a look at all the the procedure of SERP very quickly. Now there is somebody known as insolvency professional. Insolvency professional. It is a professional which administers the entire insolvency process. It also manages the assets. एक तो ये administer करता है. See, this is not there in your PPT. If you want to write it down, you can write it down. So it administers the entire process. Okay. So I have a little space here. I'm going to utilize this. It administers the process. Insolvency professional and also manages the assets. कौन से assets? The debtor. Let's suppose in our example it was XYZ Limited. If the XYZ Limited is insolvent, what is this professional going to do? It can take hold of the assets of the company. So this is the function of insolvency professional. अभी insolvency professional को appoint कौन करता है? ये करती है NCLT, which is the adjudicating authority. Then we also have agencies. Agencies होती हैं जिनके अंडर these insolvency professionals have to register themselves to this agency and agency ही provide करती है insolvency professionals को. Okay, these insolvency professionals, they have to register themselves to agencies, insolvency professional agencies. ये exam conduct करती है in insolvency professionals के लिए. Then we have informational utilities, IU, which contains all the information regarding IU. Information utilities, they contain all the information regarding this debtor XYZ Limited के बारे में कि कितना पैसा किसको दिया हुआ है, किससे लिया हुआ है, who all do they owe to, right? So all the information regarding this XYZ company, its creditors, its debtors, सब कुछ is taken over by the insolvency utilities. Oh, sorry, information utilities, right? Now let's just quickly go through the process. सबसे पहले the financial creditor, let's suppose XYZ insolvent हो रही है, the financial creditor, let's suppose SBI है, PNB है, अदानी ग्रुप है, okay, the financial creditors or a few other creditors जिनकी different classes होती है. When I say classes, I mean कितना percentage है उनका credit में. Let's suppose total credit है 100 करोड़ का, जिसमें से 70% is given by the SBI, तो इनकी अलग क्लास बन गई. 10% is given by somebody else, so इनकी अलग क्लास बन गई. So this depends on the percentage that you have in the entire credit that is owed by the XYZ Limited. XYZ ने कितने पैसे वापस करने हैं, that is the credit. Okay, that they have to return to you. Now, so these financial creditors, they are going to start the process by complaining to the adjudicating authority, which is the NCLT. Now, what is the NCLT is going to do? The NCLT will appoint an insolvency professional. I am repeating again, it is not there in this PPT, so you will have to make notes. Okay, now insolvency professional. Now these insolvency professionals, they can initially be interim resolution professionals. Interim. पहले interim के लिए they are appointed for an interim period. Now, when they are appointed for an interim period, they can acquire the assets. They have the power to acquire the assets of the company, which is XYZ Limited. Because in our example, XYZ is going to be insolvent. Now, so they are going to acquire the assets of XYZ. Now, what they are going to do is, they are going to appoint a committee of creditors. Understand this, it is very important. Committee of creditors. जितने भी creditors ने complain करी है, उनकी committee बनेगी. This committee will have all these creditors, class wise committee बनती है, and this committee further will take decisions. एक insolvency professional जो है, so committee की meeting start होती है. The first meeting of the committee, in the very first meeting, they will decide कि पूरा insolvency professional कौन करेगा, पूरा process कौन oversee करेगा, right? Who is going to oversee the process? Is it going to be this interim professional or somebody else? If they approve this insolvency interim professional, this interim professional will become the insolvency professional. यहाँ तक सबको clear है? FC and OC, FC is somebody who is given you financial credit, right? जैसे banks हो गए तो वो financial creditors है. Operational creditor is somebody who can give you goods and services for your various operations. या किसी ने आपको raw material दिए हुए हैं and you default on them. Okay. Okay. Now, so the first meeting they are going to decide कि insolvency professional will this be the person going forward or not. तो फिर ये finally insolvency professional बन जाते हैं and they come up with an insolvency plan. Now let us quickly go through all the amendments that are there. All the amendments that are there. The IBBI has come up with the amendments in 2023 for insolvency professionals. जो ये insolvency professionals, I've just explained it to you. इनके लिए कुछ amendments हैं to make the process related to IPs and the registration simpler and more efficient. It aims to ease the procedure for enrollment, registration and exiting of the professional. I just explained to you insolvency professionals को enroll करना पड़ता है. And so these amendments जो हैं, all these amendments, they are going to, the procedure, the entire procedure will be now very easy. For the entire procedure of their enrollment, their registration will be now very easy. Now, the first amendment here is about unified application form. So पहले now what is going to happen, there is going to be a common form. A common form is going to be there for the registration as well as enrollment, the registration as well as enrollment of the professional. जब professional को enroll किया जा रहा है, there is going to be a common form. However, the approval time will differ. जब आप approve करोगे इनकी registration को या इनकी enrollment को, the approval timeline is 60 days for enrollment and 30 days for registration. So this is the approval time. This is the second amendment. This was the first amendment, second amendment. You have to remember this as these can be asked in your exam. So ये technical है, technical चीजें. Now RBI in phase 1 only has started asking you a lot of technical questions. Therefore phase 1, phase 2 दोनों के लिए you have to remember these. Now approval times have been reduced. ये पहले ज़्यादा थे, now they have been reduced. So this is not a specific amendment but a general statement that the approval time has been reduced. Now what next? Additional requirements for surrender or expulsion. If they want to leave, what is going to happen? Or the criteria. उसके भी कुछ additional requirements है. So the additional requirements for surrender or expulsion, if they want to leave or is expelled, needs to meet a few criteria. कुछ criteria निकाले हैं. This is going in detail. However, there are additional requirements now. This is what we have to understand. Now, furnishing information to the board. The IPs, which is the insolvency professional, they need to inform the board in case professional leaves or get expelled. So the IBBI, which is the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, जो कि regulate करता है, they regulate the insolvency professional, they regulate the insolvency utilities, they regulate the agencies. So they have to be informed. The IBBI has to be informed. The board has to be informed if any insolvency professional is leaving. Then the surrender of certificate of registration. Professionals to surrender the registration if the board requires. If the board asks कि आपको जो certificate मिला हुआ है, you have to surrender that. The professionals will have to surrender it. Now, amendment in insolvency resolution process in for corporate. Default including the date when the debt become overdue. तो उसका एक evidence देना पड़ता है. In case there is a default, the evidence is supposed to be given. And evidence में भी बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. कौन-कौन से evidence की requirement है? Then the chronology of the debt, the date of the default, these are all the documents that have to be submitted. The date of part payment, if any अगर part payment हो गई है, let's suppose the debtor has already made payments. The debtor has already made payments. तो उस केस में क्या होगा? Date of last acknowledgement, all these documents, all this information has to be furnished. Okay, amendment to the, again, the IRP or the insolvency resolution professionals can now take legal rights and control of the following. The insolvency professional or the IRP. The IRP is interim insolvency professional. The interim insolvency professional and the insolvency professional can now take legal rights and control of the following. The records of information relating to the assets. I just explained it to you. They can acquire assets. The insolvency professional या जो interim professional जो सबसे पहले appoint होता है. Going forward, they will be or they can be the resolution professionals if the COC decides. Now, so these professionals, they have the right to acquire assets and now they have the records of information relating to the assets, finances, operations of the corporate debtor. So they can have the legal rights over the following. And then the assets recorded in the balance sheet of the corporate debtor, when they are acquiring, they can have legal rights over it. Now, what is next? While taking over custody and control of the assets and records, the IPS or the IPS is the insolvency professional, IPs, insolvency professional, and the interim or the resolution professional, they can check the possession of the same. जब आप किसी की custody ले रहे हैं, in case we have an insolvency professional which is acquiring or controlling the assets, they can check the possession of the same if they have received it or not. Then again, the interim resolution professional or the resolution professional shall himself prepare a list of all the assets and records while taking the custody and control of the assets. These are general amendments which you just have to understand. Then list to be signed to the parties present, to be signed by the parties present and by at least 2 individuals who have witnessed the act of taking control of the custody. Now let's suppose XYZ Limited, it is defaulting and unke assets are going to be taken over by the insolvency professional. So these are all the following procedures that have to be appointed by the insolvency professional. सबसे पहले, they can take control over the assets of the company. They can make a list of all the assets that they are going to take over, and then the two at least parties should be present. Two parties should be present. At least two individuals should witness this entire process or the entire act of controlling and custody. Then the creditors can submit claim with proof up to the date of issue of request for resolution plans or 90 days from the insolvency commencement date. The creditors to who this money is owed, the financial creditors or the operational creditors, they can submit the claim. The claim means that this company owes us. So let's suppose XYZ tha hamara example. This company owes us. So we are claiming this much amount from this company. So they can submit the claim with proof of up to date of issue of request for resolution plans or 90 days from the insolvency commencement date. So they again general they have to submit about the claim with the proof up to the date of issue of request. If the claims are received after the specified period, that is 7 days before meeting for vote, jo voting hoti hai, the RP can categorize them as acceptable or non-acceptable for collation. Now, once these creditors have submitted the claim, again, if they have submitted before the time, then there is another process. Now, if they are submitted after the time, after the specified period, which is 7 days, then the RP, the resolution professional, has the authority to either accept it or non-accept it. Accept or non-accept for what? We are talking about the claim for collation. Collation is nothing but collection of all the information, collection of all these claims. And in पे further जो procedure होगा, that is जब start होता है, that is the collection of all the information, collection of all the information about the claims कि किसको कितना owe करना है. That is nothing but collation. Now, the financial creditors in a class representing not less than 10% voting share may seek the replacement, this is important, may seek the replacement of the authorized representative with an IP if of their choice by making a request to the IRP. Now, I have already explained to you what are financial creditors, jo claim karte hain that this person owes us. In our example, it was XYZ. Now, the financial creditors in a class representing not less than 10% voting. Now, I've already explained it to you. There are different class of financial creditors, जो कि committee of creditors में होते हैं. Now, they, as per their voting rights, which should be more than 10%, if they want to replace the authorized representative, replace the authorized representative with the IP, with an IP of their choice by making a request to the IP or the IRP. Now, what is authorized representative? What is the authorized representatives? See, we have a committee of creditors where जब उनकी meeting होती है, there is going to be an authorized representative which is going to represent the committee of creditors. अगर कोई meeting है, if जब IBBI के पास आपको plan लेके जाना होता है, when the committees or the insolvency professional takes up the plan, whoever is representing them is the authorized representative, which is a member of the committee. तो committee अपने में से एक authorized representative निकालती है. However, the class of creditors in the company which is more than 10%, they can talk to the IP, which is the insolvency professional or the resolution professional. They can tell him that we want to replace this authorized representative. यहाँ तक clear है? So this was about replacement of IP, not IP, replacement of AR. Replacement of AR, authorized representative. Now, this authorized representative is, it can receive a fee. Whenever meetings are conducted, meetings of the committee of creditors आपस में meeting करते हैं to approve the insolvency plan. XYZ financial creditor नहीं था. I did not say XYZ was the financial creditor. I said XYZ was the debtor जो insolvent हो रहा है. Financial creditor can claim whatever they जितना भी amount that is owed to them, right? Divya is saying it is too technical to remember. धीरे धीरे पढ़ोगे तो you will be able to remember everything. Now, so the committee of creditors, they have to approve the plan for which they meet, they conduct their meetings. And in their meetings, the authorized representative can collect a fee or has the right to collect a fee. Now, what is the fee? This is as per the class of creditors. So, the number of creditors in each class, if it is 10 to 100, then the fee is going to be 30,000. If it is 101 to 1000, the fee is going to be 40,000. More than 10,000, it is going to be 50,000. ये technical है, but you can go through it once, तो आपको याद हो जाएगा. The fee for creditors attended by the AR, this is again same, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000. This is as per the class. Okay. Now, the parties to inform in case creditor assigns or transfer the debt within 7 days. Okay, the parties have to inform in case the creditor, whoever is owed the money, the creditor assigns or transfers the debt within 7 days, the parties are supposed to be informed. Any audit of the corporate debtor to be treated as an insolvency resolution process cost. अगर जो audit हो रही है, there is also a process of audit. अगर audit हो रही है of the corporate debtor, audit is taking place on the corporate debtor, this cost of audit is supposed to be added to insolvency resolution process cost, right? Then again, now this is the description of the activity. The commencement of SERP and the appointment of the IRP is पूरे process का time होगा, the latest timeline. So this is the timeline. T stands for timeline here. The approval of resolution plan by AA, the timeline should be 180 days. I just told you कि insolvency professional जो है एक plan बनाता है. Now this plan is supposed to be approved by the committee of creditors, which they will tell to the adjudicating authority that we have this plan कि हमको इतना इतना पैसा मिल जाए and we are happy with this. This was in this plan and we have approved this. The final approval is given by the AA and which will take 180 days. So T is the time which is 180 days. T is the time for commencement of this process. Sir, here is corporate insolvency resolution process. Now, this brings us to the end of the topic. I know these are a little technical, but if you read it twice or thrice, you will be able to understand it. Now, let's come to questions. Question number 1. What was the main reason for economic slowdown of China? The first is due to extended restriction of the economy. China's government didn't reduce their interest rate drastically to boost demand and liquidity, and there was an increased expenditure made by the government. So here the first two statements are correct. The answer will be 1 and 2. Now, why is China's FDI falling? The government banned the use of US-based memory chips in computers. This is one reason we understood for falling FDI. The companies also are uneasy about the Beijing's promotion. This is again right, and this is also right. So all of the above statement here are going to be correct. The financial creditors in a class representing not less than 10% voting members. I think we have not done this. So we're going to skip this and come to question number 4. What is the time limit for various processes under the approval for resolution plan by AA? This is very easy. The time limit for approval of the resolution plan by the adjudicating authority is 180 days. So here 1 is correct. Right. This was the last question for today. I know thoda sa lecture lamba ho gaya, but it was also started late. Right? So again, thode se technicals hain, but if you read it once or twice, you will be able to get it. If there's any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section below or on discussion forum. Thanks for watching.